My name is Vanessa Carter, 35, aerospace security analyst. I spend my days modeling how satellites fail, how ground stations get breached, and how to keep both from taking half a continent down with them. It's quiet work. NDA heavy. If I do it right, nothing dramatic happens and nobody knows my name. Which is exactly why my family never counted it. The night it snapped was a Friday, Jenna's pre-promotion dinner at my parents' place. The house smelled like roast and lemon cleaner, with navy plaques lining the hallway like a museum of acceptable achievements. Dad, Air Force retired, told the same 3 stories he always told, each one ending with a medal and a photo. Mom moved through the room like a stage manager, checking place cards, straightening forks. My brother Mark had already parked himself by the cooler, badge clipped, shoulders wide. The whole "I protect and serve" tableau. I walked in with a bottle of wine and the kind of hope I kept swearing I'd quit. "You made it," Mom said, then added, "Set that on the counter, okay? Dinner's almost ready. No hug. No how's work. Just choreography." At the table, conversation stacked like parade floats. Mark's new squad car, Dad's veteran luncheon, Jenna's husband's upcoming change of command. My seat was an end cap by the window. When I tried to chime in something small about a launch delay I could mention without violating anything, Mark cut across me with a grin that never reached his eyes. "So," he said, loud enough for the room. "Still, freelancing from the couch. Must be nice sleeping in till noon." A few laughs. Mom's soft Mark, the kind she uses when she doesn't want him to stop. Dad didn't look up. Jenna arranged her napkin with surgical focus. I felt the comment land where years of similar comments had already bruised. Useful but invisible, present but uncredited. I could have listed receipts. The lawyer I paid quietly to keep Mark's DUI off the record. The 3 nights I edited Jenna's policy paper while her husband was deploying. The $9,000 hospital bill I cleared when Mom's insurance balked. But that's the trap with receipts. You start waving them and suddenly you're auditioning for a seat at your own table. I forced a smile and took a sip of water. "I work," I said. "It just doesn't come with a dress uniform." Mark tapped his badge with 2 fingers. "Real jobs do." Dad finally looked up. "You know, Ness, if you want structure, I saw a posting at the county utility. Good benefits, steady. None of this online stuff." "Dad," I said, keeping my voice level, "I'm fine." "And they springed, we." "Sure," he replied, smiling like a lifeguard throwing a float to a swimmer who never asked for help. "Just thinking of your future." I let the room roll on without me. That used to be my survival trick. Go quiet, shrink, wait it out. But somewhere between the salad and the speeches, I felt something harden. Not anger exactly. Alignment. A line in sand I hadn't realized I'd been drawing. They clinked glasses for Jenna PhD, almost done, spouse promoted, model of discipline. When it came time for toasts, Mark lifted his beer. "To the ones doing real work," he said. He didn't look at me when he said it. He didn't have to. I stood to take plates to the sink, partly to move, mostly to choose myself over the performance. Mom followed, whispering as the faucet ran. "Sweetie, don't be sensitive. Tonight isn't about you." I dried my hands. It never island. Back in the dining room, the front door opened. Ethan Hale, Jenna's husband, stepped in straight from base in full dress whites, ribbons aligned, shoes that turned the hardwood into a mirror. The volume dipped the way it always does when the uniform enters automatic respect. Ethan scanned the room, nodding to my parents, then Jenna. His eyes hit mine and paused. For a heartbeat, I thought I was imagining it. Then he changed direction and walked toward my end of the table. He stopped 2 feet from my chair, squared himself, and lifted his hand with textbook precision. "Ma'am?" The fork slid from Dad's fingers and pinged against the plate. Mark's mouth opened and didn't find a word. Mum's hand froze around a stack of napkins. Jenna went still. I didn't move, didn't explain, didn't rescue anyone from the silence. I simply returned the nod, the way you do when someone recognizes the work without needing the label. Ethan dropped the salute, voice even. "Didn't expect to see you here, Dr. Carter." The title hit the room like a second bell. I never use it. I don't have to, but he knew the projects, the protocols, the nights I spent modeling failure, so his unit wouldn't live it. He didn't say details. He couldn't. He didn't need to. "Likewise, Lieutenant Commander," I said. He took the empty seat beside me. Conversations restarted in fragments, wrong keys, wrong tempo. Mark whispered something to a cousin. The cousin didn't laugh. Dad cleared his throat twice and stood, abandoning whatever toast he'd planned. Mom adjusted the runner that didn't need adjusting. Jenna smiled too brightly and moved on to cutting the cake early. I didn't bask. There was nothing to bask in. It wasn't vindication, it was calibration. For the first time in this house, someone used the correct scale. I stayed another 20 minutes, long enough to make it clear I wasn't leaving because of them, and then I left because of me. Outside, the air was cold and honest. I sat in my car with the engine off and felt the old instinct to text an explanation to the family thread to smooth edges they'd carved. I set the phone face down instead. Here's what changed. Not them, not yet. Me. I stopped applying for the job of being believed. By the time I pulled onto the highway, the words had settled into something I could carry. If they need a uniform to see you, stop standing where you're invisible. The road unspooled in a clean, dark line. For once, it felt like mine. The week after Jenna's dinner, I worked 3 16-hour days straight. Our team was running a stress simulation on satellite relay chains. If we missed a fault tolerance gap, the fallout could cripple comms for half the eastern seaboard. We caught it, patched it, filed it. The system held. No one at home knew. And if they had, they'd probably still have asked me why I didn't just get a real job. That was the part that kept looping in my head. Not the salute, not Ethan's voice saying Dr. Carter, but the silence after. My own family, stunned like someone had spoken a foreign language. And in a way, maybe he had. Respect was a dialect they never used with me. Growing up, achievement in our house came with packaging. Uniforms, medals, speeches, framed diplomas. If it couldn't be displayed at a banquet, it didn't count. Dad loved structure so much he turned dinner conversations into debriefs. Who made rank? Who got recognized? Who showed up in the paper? Mark fit the mold from day one. Strong jaw, squared shoulders, the kind of kid who looked born to wear a badge. Every story about him ended with applause. Jenna was no different, straight A's, full ride, Navy officer husband. Every milestone was an event with balloons and hashtags. Me? I was the quiet one with laptops and code. Projects that didn't fit into a photo frame. My parents nodded politely, then changed the subject. I learned to live with it. But living with it doesn't mean it doesn't cut. I thought about all the invisible work I'd done for them. Mark's DUI, swept away after I wired the lawyer's retainer. Jenna's meltdown before finals, rescued by nights. I stayed awake, editing her papers while she cried. Mom's $9,000 medical bill, covered without ceremony, never mentioned again. No thank yous, no acknowledgements, just silence and, worse, jokes. You still between coffee breaks? Mark had sneered. Some of us have real jobs. Thinks is men. That night at the dinner, when Ethan saluted me, something snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. For the first time, I saw the equation. My family didn't misunderstand me. They preferred the smaller version. Quiet, convenient, easy to dismiss. And I had let them. The following weekend, Mom texted about brunch for Dad's birthday. Group thread, cheerful emojis, location tagged. I didn't respond right away. I stared at the message, thumb hovering, wondering why I should keep showing up to be erased. Then Jenna followed up. Hope you can make it. Dad would love to see everyone together. Everyone. As if I hadn't been cut from the story for years. I almost typed, I'll be there. Old habits die hard. But then Ethan's salute replayed in my head. Ma'am. Recognition without performance, without pity. I put my phone down. That Sunday, while they clinked glasses and sang off key, I spent the afternoon reviewing a vulnerability report that later triggered a protocol rewrite for an entire defense division. Work that mattered. Work they'd never ask about. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty about not being at the table. Here's what I've learned. Silence is not peace. It's permission. And I'd been granting it for years. Not anymore. Next time they joked, I wasn't going to laugh along. Next time they erased me, I wasn't going to chase my way back into the frame. I didn't need another salute to prove my worth. I just needed to stop handing out passes to people who hadn't earned them. The cost of being invisible is too high. I was done paying it. Have you ever realized you were giving people permission to treat you smaller than you are? Drop your story in the comments. I want to hear how you handled it. Dad's 60th rolled around 2 months later. Big deal in our family. Formal invitations, rented banquet hall. Navy buddies flown in from 3 states. Jenna handled the planning like it was a military operation. Seating charts, dress code, RSVP deadlines. My invite came late. A text from Mom, clipped and casual. Hope you can make it, would mean a lot to your father. Translation: come, but don't make it about you. I almost declined. But something in me wanted to see, once and for all, if anything had changed since Ethan's salute. The hall smelled like lemon polish and roast beef. Flags draped the stage. Dad stood near the podium in his navy blazer, already retelling one of his command stories for the 5th time. Mark circled the crowd with his badge half visible, playing the hometown hero. Jenna worked the room with Adam, her husband, like they were hosting a diplomatic summit. I walked in with a wrapped gift, a signed edition of a naval history book Dad used to quote. Thoughtful, specific, meaningful. No one noticed me at first. When Mom finally spotted me, her smile looked painted on. Vanessa, you came. That's nice, Gifts go over there." She didn't touch the book, just gestured toward a pile of wrapped boxes. Dinner buzzed with updates. Mark's precinct expansion, Jenna's new committee appointment, Adam's deployment stories. When it came my turn, Dad asked the same tired question. "Still consulting?" "Yes," I said, voice steady. "Still consulting." Mark snorted. Translation: Netflix with a laptop open. A few laughs. Mom gave him the soft mark that meant keep going, just don't overdo it. I kept my fork moving, but inside something cracked. Then Ethan arrived. Late, in uniform, like always. The chatter quieted, admiration sweeping the room. He scanned the hall, nodded to Dad, then to Jenna, and then, like at Jenna's promotion dinner, his gaze caught mine. He walked straight toward me. The clink of cutlery softened as people noticed. "Ma'am," he said, clear and formal, before offering a salute. It landed like a thunderclap. Dad froze mid-toast, his glass shaking. Mark's smirk vanished. Jenna's smile faltered. I returned a calm nod. "Lieutenant Commander." The room hushed. Guests exchanged glances. Whispers rippled. "Why her? What's going on?" Ethan didn't explain. He just pulled out the chair next to mine and Saturday. Conversations stumbled back to life, uneven and thin. Mark tried to joke again, but no one laughed this time. Dad's stories trailed off. Even Mom, usually the master of redirecting, looked unsettled. It was the first time in years that I wasn't invisible. And the irony? I hadn't said a word. The respect didn't come from my family. It came from someone they already respected. Ethan's salute forced them to confront a truth they'd ignored. I wasn't small. I never had been. I didn't stay long. Ate quietly, thanked the host, then left before dessert. The cold night air felt sharper, cleaner than the stale warmth of the hall. In the parking lot, I breathed deep and realized something simple. Their silence wasn't my burden anymore. For years, I'd tried to earn a seat at their table. But now, I saw clearly I'd been building a table of my own the whole time. Ever had someone finally recognize what others spent years ignoring? Share your story in the comments, and if you've ever decided to stop auditioning for approval, hit like and subscribe. I've got more to share. After Dad's banquet, the family thread lit up with photos. Mark flexing by the cake, Jenna smiling in Adam's arms, Mom and Dad raising a toast. Not a single frame included me. It was as if I hadn't been there at all. I stared at the thread for a while, thumb hovering. Then I muted the chat. I wasn't going to beg for proof of my existence anymore. The next week was brutal at work. Our team was running a vulnerability sweep on satellite to ground uplinks, and I found a hole big enough to keep me awake 3 nights straight. The kind of oversight that could have triggered a national security headline if someone less careful had missed it. We patched it. The system held. No applause, no fanfare, just quiet trust from the people who knew what it meant. And I realized something. That was enough. It struck me how different my 2 worlds were. At home, silence erased me. At work, silence meant confidence. One suffocated me, the other respected me. Mom called a few days later. "Sweetie," she said in that too bright tone, "things got a little tense at the party. Why don't we all get brunch? Clear the air." Clear the air. Like years of digs and dismissals were just one bad night. I almost agreed out of habit. But then I heard her other line echo in my head from years ago. Don't be sensitive, Vanessa. Tonight isn't about you. I exhaled slowly. I can't, I said, busy. And for once, I didn't feel guilty. Mark didn't call. No surprise there. Jenna sent a clipped text, "You're being dramatic." That word again, the family's favorite weapon for shutting me down. This time, I didn't respond. Because I finally saw it clearly. I'd been mistaking silence for peace. But silence is just a razor. It cuts you every time you swallow it. And I was done swallowing it. The next invite came for Easter brunch. Group text, full of smiley emojis. "Hope you can make it," Mom wrote. I didn't answer. On Easter morning, while they grilled and posted photos captioned "Strong Family, Stronger Traditions," I walked along the river, headphones in, sun on my face. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel left out. I felt free. Here's the thing. When people insist on telling a smaller version of your story, you don't have to correct them. You just have to stop standing in their narrative. I wasn't erasing them. I was releasing myself. Have you ever stopped carrying the silence that someone else tried to hand you? Drop your story in the comments. And if this resonates, hit like, share, and subscribe, because I'm just getting started. By summer, the absence of my family wasn't a wound anymore. It was space. And space has a way of filling itself when you stop plugging it with people who don't see you. I threw myself into work not out of escape, but out of alignment. We were running a security audit for a private contractor, the kind of project where one missed line of code could ripple into a blackout. 14-hour days blurred into weekends, but I didn't mind. Because here, when I spoke, people listened. Not because they understood every detail, but because they trusted me to hold the structure up. It was a sharp contrast to home, where jokes about real jobs still floated on the family thread. I muted it again and didn't look back. One Friday, I blocked off an hour on my calendar for mentorship. Nothing official, just a standing window. If a junior analyst wanted feedback, they could book it. If not, I used the time to write, to think, to build. The first person who showed up was a new hire, nervous, still carrying the weight of proving herself. She asked, "Did you ever feel overlooked starting out?" I didn't give her the whole story, just enough. I used to mistake silence for peace. It wasn't. It was a razor. You learn to stop bleeding for people who don't want to see you. She nodded like she understood. Maybe she didn't fully yet, but she would. And in her eyes, I saw a reflection I never found at my parents' table. Respect. That mentorship hour became sacred. Week by week, faces came and went, questions about audits, threat modeling, balancing burnout. I gave them what I never got at home: attention without dismissal, recognition without conditions. And the more I did it, the less I thought about who wasn't asking me anything. Around the same time, a colleague recommended me for a closed-door summit. No website, no press, just a code name on the invite. The panel was on supply chain vulnerabilities, high stakes, quiet audience. Phones sealed in opaque bags. When they introduced me, the moderator said, "Her work keeps things from breaking where it matters most." One sentence, clean, accurate. And for the first time, I felt seen without having to explain or defend. Back home, Jenna texted again. You're ignoring everyone. That's not a solution. I stared at it, thumb hovering, then deleted the message. Because I finally understood. It wasn't ignoring. It was choosing. Choosing to invest in places where my worth wasn't debated, where my presence wasn't conditional. The family thought they'd written me out of their story. What they didn't realize was that I'd started writing my own. And this time, I was the main character. Have you ever built something stronger in the space someone else abandoned? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this hits home. By fall, my life had settled into a rhythm that felt unshakable. Work was steady, mentorship hours were booked solid, and I no longer flinched when family messages lit up my phone. Most of the time, I didn't open them, but one Saturday, a card arrived in the mail. Handwritten, no return address. I knew Jenna's handwriting instantly. It said, "I think I finally get it. I'm sorry for all the times I didn't ask. I'm sorry for not seeing what was right in front of me. I know it's too late, but I'm proud of you. I hope someday I can earn back even part of your trust." I didn't cry. I didn't rush to respond. I just folded the note and tucked it in my desk drawer, under a stack of vulnerability reports. Not as forgiveness, not as proof, just as acknowledgement. Something had shifted. Weeks later, I was invited to speak on a private panel in D.C. Small room, sealed phones, defense leaders only. I walked in with my notes, ready to brief, when I noticed two familiar faces near the back. Mom and Dad. They didn't wave, didn't interrupt. They just sat quietly through the entire session, listening. Afterward, as the room emptied, Dad stepped forward. His voice was rougher than I remembered. "You looked like you belonged up there." I met his eyes. I did. He nodded once. No excuses, no backpedaling. Just a sentence I'd waited 35 years to hear, spoken too late to change the past, but clear enough to mark the present. Mom added softly, "We didn't know." "I know," I said. That was the problem. We didn't hug. We didn't fix everything. But for the first time, they looked at me without trying to fit me into a smaller frame. They looked at me with respect. Mark never reached out. That used to sting. Now, it doesn't. Some people need others to stay small so they can feel big. That's their foundation, not mine. Jenna and I talk occasionally. Cautious, careful. She doesn't call me dramatic anymore. She listens more than she speaks. It's not perfect, but it's real. And Adam, well, he still sends the occasional email. Short, professional, but always carrying that unspoken reminder of the night he saluted me. The night the story finally cracked open. These days, I don't chase family dinners or muted approval. I spend Fridays mentoring young analysts, teaching them what no one taught me. That silence isn't peace, it's a razor. That your worth doesn't shrink just because someone else refuses to measure it. When I look back at everything, the jokes, the dismissals, the nights I walked away without a word, I don't feel anger, I feel clarity, because sometimes justice doesn't roar. Sometimes it walks in quietly, salutes you in front of the people who doubted you, and leaves the silence to do the rest. If you've ever had to stop shrinking just to make others comfortable, drop your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And if this series spoke to you, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe. Because the best kind of justice isn't loud, it's undeniable.